One phone call from the bank exposed a man who looked exactly like me. But the truth wasn't an affair, it was a shocking family secret buried for 38 years. Watch until the end, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more unforgettable true stories.
I never imagined that one ordinary Tuesday afternoon would split my life into two completely different chapters. It started with a phone call from my bank. At first, I almost ignored it. I was buried in paperwork, trying to finish a report before the end of the day. The phone kept vibrating across my desk until I finally answered. "Hello, this is Daniel speaking." A calm female voice replied. "Good afternoon, Mr. Carter. This is Olivia from First National Bank. I hope I'm not disturbing you." "Not at all," I answered. "Is something wrong?" There was a brief silence. Not the kind that happens because someone loses their train of thought. The kind that makes your stomach tighten before you even know why. She cleared her throat. "Sir, I need to verify something. Are you currently inside our downtown branch?" I frowned. "No, I'm at work. Why?" Another pause. Then she said something that made every hair on my arms stand up. "I'm sorry, sir, but there's a gentleman here using your identification. He's standing beside your wife." I laughed, not because it was funny, because it was impossible. There must be some mistake. "I'm afraid that's what we're trying to determine." "My wife isn't with anyone," I replied confidently. "She's visiting her mother in Cedar Falls. She left yesterday morning." The employee lowered her voice. "Sir, the woman here introduced herself as your wife. She has your joint account information, your signatures, and she seems very comfortable with the man claiming to be you." I stopped breathing for a second. "What did you say?" "The man resembles the picture on your driver's license almost perfectly. Same height, same hair color, similar voice. If I hadn't asked him a security question only the real account holder would know, I probably wouldn't have noticed." I slowly stood up from my chair. "This can't be happening." "I understand, sir." "No, you don't." I looked at the framed family photo sitting beside my computer. Emily, smiling beside me during our anniversary vacation. The same woman who kissed me goodbye yesterday morning. The same woman who promised she'd spend 2 days taking care of her sick mother. The same woman who called me 3 times last night from what she claimed was her mother's house. Nothing made sense anymore. "Sir?" Emily asked gently. "Are you still there?" "Yes." "I think it would be best if you came to the branch immediately. Don't let them leave. We'll do our best, but legally we can't detain anyone unless law enforcement becomes involved. I'll be there." I grabbed my car keys without even shutting down my computer. As I rushed through the office, my coworkers called after me. I didn't answer. The drive usually took 25 minutes. That afternoon, every red light felt like a personal attack. My hands shook so badly that I nearly dropped my phone while trying to call Emily. Straight to voicemail. Again, voicemail. Again, nothing. I tried her mother's house. No answer. I called Emily's younger sister. She picked up on the 3rd ring. "Hey, Daniel. Is Emily with your mom?" Silence. Then confusion. "What are you talking about? She's been there since yesterday." "No, she hasn't." My heart skipped. "What? My mom's been alone all week. Emily said she was too busy to visit." The steering wheel nearly slipped from my hands. "So, you're telling me—" "Daniel, what's going on?" I ended the call before she could ask another question. For the first time in 12 years of marriage, I realized I had absolutely no idea where my wife had been. Every memory of the past 6 months suddenly felt suspicious. The late-night business meetings, the unexplained cash withdrawals, the sudden interest in organizing our financial documents, the questions about life insurance, even the way she recently insisted that we update our banking passwords together. At the time, I thought she was simply being responsible. Now, every single detail looked different. I pulled into the bank parking lot so fast that my tires squealed. Before I even reached the entrance, the same employee spotted me through the glass doors. She immediately recognized that I was not the man inside. Her expression changed instantly, relief mixed with fear. She hurried outside before I could even step in. "Mr. Carter?" "Yes." She looked over both shoulders before speaking. "They're still here." "Where?" "In one of our private offices." "Can I see them?" She hesitated. "I need to prepare you first." "What do you mean?" "The resemblance is unsettling." I stared at her. "You're telling me someone actually looks like me?" She nodded slowly. "When he first walked in, none of us questioned it." "Then what happened?" "I asked him your mother's maiden name." He hesitated. Then Emily answered for him. A chill ran through my entire body. Emily answered, without hesitation, as if they had practiced, as if this wasn't their first attempt. "Why didn't you call the police? We wanted to confirm our suspicions first. Identity fraud is serious, but we needed the actual account holder." She looked directly into my eyes. "And now you're here." She led me quietly through a side hallway instead of the main lobby. Every step felt heavier than the last. I could hear muffled voices behind a closed office door. One of them sounded eerily familiar. Not just familiar, it sounded like me. My breathing became shallow. The bank employee placed a hand on the doorknob but stopped before opening it. She whispered, "I need you to stay calm no matter what you see. I can't promise that. I understand." She slowly turned the handle. The door opened just enough for me to see inside. Emily was sitting comfortably across from the bank manager. She looked completely relaxed, almost happy. Beside her sat a man wearing a navy jacket. His back faced the door. The bank manager was speaking. "I just need one final signature before we process the transfer." The man reached for the pen. Then he turned his head. My entire world stopped. It wasn't simply someone who resembled me. It was like looking into a mirror that had aged differently. The same jawline, the same gray streak near the left temple, even the small scar above the eyebrow, a scar I got when I was 16 after falling off my bicycle. I instinctively touched my forehead. He did the exact same thing at almost the same moment. Emily noticed me first. The color drained from her face. The pen slipped from the stranger's fingers. The room fell completely silent. For several long seconds, nobody moved, nobody spoke. Then the stranger slowly stood up, locked eyes with me, and said 4 words that made my blood run cold. "You're earlier than expected."
You're earlier than expected. Those 4 words echoed inside my head like thunder. The stranger didn't sound nervous. He didn't sound surprised. He sounded disappointed, as if I had interrupted a carefully planned performance. Emily slowly stood from her chair. "Daniel?" Her voice trembled for the first time. I stared at her without blinking. "Who is he?" She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. The bank manager looked from me to the stranger and back again. I don't understand," he whispered. "There are 2 of you?" The stranger calmly adjusted his jacket and gave me a faint smile. "I suppose introductions are overdue." I took 1 step toward him. "Take another step," I said quietly, "and I'll make sure you regret it." The bank security guard immediately entered the room. "Sir, please remain calm." Calm? How could anyone stay calm? A man with my face, my voice, even my scar, was standing beside my wife, pretending to be me. The bank employee who had called me stepped forward. "This is the real account holder." The stranger looked directly at her. "Are you certain?" She nodded confidently. "Yes." He smiled again. "I was hoping you'd say that." Nobody understood what he meant. Not even Emily. She looked almost as confused as everyone else. I pointed at my wife. "Start talking." She swallowed hard. "Daniel, it's not what you think." I laughed bitterly. "Really? I've heard that sentence before. It never ends well." Tears began forming in her eyes. "I was trying to protect you." "Protect me?" I almost shouted. "By bringing another man into my bank?" She shook her head violently. "No, you don't understand." The stranger suddenly interrupted. "She's telling the truth." I turned toward him. "You don't get to speak." "Oh, I think I do." His voice remained calm, almost respectful. "I'm the reason you're still alive." The room became silent again. "What did you just say?" "I said, I'm the reason you're breathing today." I took another step toward him until we were only inches apart. His eyes. They weren't just similar. They were identical. The same shade of blue, the same tiny dark spot in the left iris. That wasn't possible. Nobody could copy eyes. He looked at me carefully. "You're noticing it now. What are you?"
He smiled sadly. That's the better question. The bank manager finally spoke. I'm calling the police. The stranger slowly raised one hand. Please do. I'm tired of running. Those words confused everyone. Emily suddenly grabbed his arm. No, you promised. I know, but this can't continue. I looked at Emily. You know him. She nodded. How long? She closed her eyes. 8 months. 8 months. The number hit me harder than any punch ever could. 8 months. Every anniversary dinner, every weekend trip, every family gathering, every smile, every kiss. Had she been lying the entire time? I felt my knees weaken. The stranger noticed. He pulled out a chair. You should sit. I slapped the chair away. Don't pretend you care. I do. I always have. I stared at him. You don't even know me. He looked into my eyes. I know more about you than you can imagine. Those words sent another chill through my body. The police sirens could already be heard outside. The bank manager had quietly pressed the emergency alarm. Within seconds, 2 officers entered. Everyone raised their hands, except me. One officer looked around in complete disbelief. I'm going to need someone to explain why there appear to be identical twins in this office. We're not twins, I answered immediately. The stranger remained silent. One officer asked for everyone's identification. I handed over my wallet. Emily did the same. The stranger calmly handed over a driver's license bearing my name, Daniel Carter. The officer frowned. What is this? I assure you, it's real. The officer checked the security features. Everything appeared genuine. He looked at mine, then at his. They're both authentic. The second officer whispered, That's impossible. The stranger smiled slightly. I've heard that word a lot lately. The officers separated us into different rooms for questioning. I sat alone inside a conference room. My heart refused to slow down. A detective entered a few minutes later. My name is Detective Harris. I need you to answer honestly. I will. Has anyone ever mentioned you having a twin brother? No. Were you adopted? No. Any missing relatives? None. He wrote everything down. Then he looked at me carefully. The strange thing is, what? The other man gave exactly the same answers. I leaned back. What? He claims he grew up exactly where you did. He remembers your elementary school. He remembers your first dog. He remembers breaking his arm at age 12. I interrupted. I broke my arm at age 12. I know. The detective slowly closed his notebook. He remembers it too. I suddenly felt sick. This wasn't identity theft anymore. This wasn't a scam. This was something far stranger. The detective stood. There's one more thing. What? He requested to speak with only one person. Who? You. A few minutes later, they escorted me into another room. The stranger was sitting alone. No handcuffs, no fear. Just silence. The detective closed the door behind me. For nearly a full minute, neither of us spoke. Finally, he looked up. I've waited 38 years to meet you. My heart pounded. What are you talking about? He reached slowly into his jacket. Every officer outside immediately reached for their weapons. He carefully removed an old photograph. Its edges were worn. Its colors had almost faded away. He slid it across the table. I picked it up. The moment I looked at it, my hands began shaking uncontrollably. The picture showed 2 newborn babies, wrapped in identical blue blankets, lying side by side, and written in faded ink across the back were 6 terrifying words. Only one of them survived, officially.
I couldn't take my eyes off the photograph. 2 babies,
Same blanket, same tiny birthmark near the left shoulder. One of them was me, but the other looked exactly the same. I slowly turned the photograph over again. The faded handwriting still read, "Only one of them survived. Officially." I looked up. What does this mean? The stranger folded his hands. It means someone lied 38 years ago. My heart pounded. Who are you? He inhaled deeply. My name isn't Daniel. My name is David. I've spent my entire life searching for you. I stared at him. No, that's impossible. My parents never mentioned another child. They couldn't. Why? Because they were told I died. The room suddenly felt smaller. What are you talking about? David leaned back. 38 years ago, your parents had twin boys, you and me. There were complications during delivery. The hospital told them only one baby survived. They took you home. And me? He paused. I disappeared. My voice became almost a whisper. No, I don't believe you. I didn't expect you to. He reached into a leather folder resting beside his chair. One by one, he placed old documents on the table. A faded hospital wristband, a birth record, copies of adoption papers, medical reports. Some looked decades old. Others appeared surprisingly recent. You can have every document examined. I already have. 3 independent laboratories confirmed they're genuine. I picked up one of the papers. My hands were trembling so badly that I could barely read. The mother's name matched my mother's. The father's name matched my father's. But beneath the section labeled children, there were 2 names. Daniel Carter, David Carter. I looked up instantly. This has to be fake. David didn't argue. Instead, he quietly said, I said the exact same thing 6 months ago. I frowned. What changed your mind? He slowly removed another envelope. Inside was a DNA report. It had both our names printed on the first page. Relationship probability, 99.9998%. I pushed the papers away. No, this is impossible. I know. I spent weeks saying those exact words. The detective, who had remained silent near the wall, finally spoke. We already sent emergency samples to our forensic lab. I looked at him. You tested us? He nodded. Without discussing the results. We wanted to hear both stories first. When should the results arrive? Within a few hours. Silence returned. I suddenly remembered Emily. I turned toward the detective. My wife. Why does she know him? The detective looked toward David. You should answer that. David looked genuinely uncomfortable for the first time. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. What wasn't? Meeting Emily. I stood up. You met my wife 8 months ago? Yes. Why? I didn't know she was your wife. What? I met her at a charity fundraiser. She introduced herself as Emily. We talked. She mentioned her husband. I asked his name. When she said Daniel Carter, David stopped. His eyes became watery. I thought she was joking. But then she showed me a picture. My stomach tightened. It was you. I couldn't breathe. I thought I was looking at myself. Emily quietly began crying. I didn't know what to do. David continued. I asked to meet you. She refused. She thought I was obsessed with you. Emily nodded. I did. I thought he was obsessed with you, so I hired a private investigator. I looked at her in disbelief. You what? I had to know who he was. The detective spoke again. We've already confirmed that. The investigator's reports are real. Emily wiped away tears. Everything he told me checked out. Every address, every job, every school, everything. I slowly sat back down. This makes no sense. David nodded. Exactly. That's why we started digging. What did you find? He looked directly into my eyes. Someone erased me. Those words hung in the air. My adoption records were sealed. My birth certificate was changed. My original hospital records vanished. But every time we found one missing document, we found another clue. The detective opened a large evidence folder. There is something else. He spread several photographs across the table, old newspaper articles, hospital blueprints, pictures of retired doctors. One face caught my attention immediately, an elderly man wearing thick glasses. "Who's that?" The detective answered. "Dr. Leonard Hayes. He delivered both babies." "Where is he now?" The detective sighed. "He disappeared 27 years ago," David added quietly, "until 3 weeks ago." "What?" "I found him." Every person in the room looked at David. "You found him?" "Yes. He lives under another name. He refused to speak, but before I left, he handed me something." David reached into his jacket again. This time, he carefully removed a small silver key. It looked old, very old. Attached to it was a faded paper tag, written in blue ink, "Locker 218, St. Mary's Hospital, basement." "He told me," David whispered, "if I ever found my brother, we should open that locker together." I looked at the key. 1,000 questions flooded my mind. "What is inside?" David slowly shook his head. He said, "The answer to why one baby disappeared." The detective crossed his arms. "We sent officers to the hospital yesterday. They couldn't find locker 218. David smiled faintly. "They searched the new building. The locker is in the original basement, the part sealed after the fire in 1998. The detective's expression changed immediately. "You never mentioned that. You never asked." The silence returned again. For the first time, nobody was thinking about the bank. Nobody cared about the money transfer. Nobody cared about the fake identity. The mystery had become far bigger. It had begun nearly 40 years earlier. Suddenly, the detective's phone rang. He answered. His expression changed within seconds. "What? Are you certain?" He slowly lowered the phone. Everyone stared at him. He looked directly at me. "The forensic DNA results, they just came back." My heart nearly stopped. "What do they say?" He swallowed hard before answering. "They confirm." He looked from me to David, then added in a voice barely above a whisper, "You aren't just brothers. You are genetically identical in a way our forensic team says shouldn't be possible." And before anyone could ask another question, the lights inside the police station suddenly went completely dark. Someone had cut the power.
Darkness swallowed the room. For a brief second, nobody moved. Then the emergency lights flickered on, covering the hallway in a dim red glow. An officer shouted, "Nobody leave the building!" Footsteps echoed outside. Another officer yelled, "Someone's running!" The detective grabbed his flashlight. "Stay here!" But David suddenly stood. "No, he isn't escaping. He's going to the hospital." The detective turned. "What are you talking about?" David answered without hesitation. "If someone cut the power at the exact moment our DNA results arrived, they already know we've discovered the truth. They're going to destroy whatever is inside locker 218. The detective didn't waste another second. "Get the cars ready." Within minutes, 3 police vehicles, an ambulance, and my own car raced through the empty streets towards the abandoned St. Mary's Hospital. The building stood like a forgotten ghost. Broken windows, rusted doors, trees growing through cracked concrete. The place had officially closed almost 20 years earlier after a devastating fire. Police tape still hung from one entrance. The detective looked at David. "You know where we're going?" David nodded. "I've been here once, but I couldn't open the locker alone." The front entrance was locked. The officers forced it open. The smell of dust and mold filled the air. Every step echoed through the empty halls. Old hospital beds still stood where they had been abandoned. Wheelchairs covered in dust lined the corridor. Some walls still carried faded signs pointing towards the maternity ward.
My heartbeat grew louder with every step. We finally reached a heavy steel door leading to the original basement. It had been welded shut years earlier. The officers used cutting tools. After several long minutes, the door slowly opened. Cold air rushed out. David switched on a flashlight. There, at the far end of the basement, behind collapsed shelves, stood an old row of lockers. Most were rusted beyond recognition. One still had a faded number attached. Nobody spoke. David handed me the silver key. "I think you should do it." I stared at the key. 38 years of unanswered questions rested in my hand. I slowly inserted it into the lock. It resisted at first. Then, with a loud metallic click, the door opened. Inside, there wasn't money. There weren't jewels. There wasn't anything anyone expected. There was only one small metal box, a bundle of old cassette tapes, several folders, and a sealed envelope. Across the front, someone had written, "To my sons." My hands began shaking again. The detective carefully opened the letter. Inside was a handwritten letter. He looked at us. "You should read this." I unfolded the fragile paper. The handwriting was uneven, almost desperate. It began, "If you are reading this, then I have failed to protect both of you." My throat tightened. The letter continued, "My name is Leonard Hayes. 38 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I didn't lose one child. I allowed someone to take him." The room became completely silent. "Your father wasn't an ordinary man. He was preparing to testify against a powerful criminal organization laundering millions through medical charities. They threatened your family. They wanted leverage. The night you were born, they entered this hospital. They ordered me to separate the twins. One child remained with your parents. The other was secretly taken away and placed with another family under a new identity." Tears rolled down Emily's face. I could barely continue reading. "I spent decades trying to correct my mistake. They watched me. They destroyed records. They changed names. They bribed officials. I could never tell your parents the truth. They died believing one son had been lost forever." My vision blurred. David quietly lowered his head. The final paragraph read, "If fate ever reunites you, do not waste another day living as strangers. They stole your childhood. Do not let them steal the rest of your lives." The signature at the bottom simply read, "Leonard Hayes." Nobody spoke, not even the police officers. The detective quietly closed the letter. "We've already been investigating the organization mentioned here. This letter explains everything." Emily slowly walked towards me. She stopped only inches away. "I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. I was terrified. I thought if I said anything, you'd lose me forever." I looked into her eyes. For the first time that terrible day, I saw fear instead of deception. She hadn't betrayed me. She had been trying to understand a mystery that none of us believed could be real. I took a brief breath. "We'll talk, but later." Then I turned towards David. For several seconds, neither of us moved. 38 years, two completely different lives, two different families, two different childhoods. Yet somehow we had found each other. He smiled nervously. "So, I guess, my birthday parties were only half as expensive as they should have been." I laughed. For the first time that terrible day, I actually laughed. The tension disappeared. I walked towards him. Without saying another word, I wrapped my arms around the brother I never knew existed. He hugged me back just as tightly. Neither of us cared who was watching. Some moments don't need words. Outside, the first rays of sunrise appeared over the broken hospital roof. It felt symbolic. After decades of lies, the truth had finally found the light. Months later, the investigation led to multiple arrests. Hidden records were recovered. The organization responsible for separating families was finally exposed. Emily and I slowly rebuilt our marriage, not because trust returns overnight, but because honesty had finally replaced secrets. David became part of every holiday, every family dinner, every birthday we had unknowingly missed together. Sometimes life doesn't give us the ending we expected. Sometimes it gives us something far more valuable, the truth. Because while lies can survive for years, they can never survive forever. And on the day the bank called to tell me, "Your wife is here with a man who looks just like you," I believed I was about to lose everything. Instead, I found the one person I'd been missing my entire life. Sometimes the worst phone call you'll ever receive becomes the beginning of the greatest miracle you'll ever experience.